Welcome back. This is the Supreme Petition. With me for this discussion, Suleiman Bashiro, George Kithi, Morara Omoke. I am Trix Ingado. We're taking a look at day 3 of the Supreme Court petitions, the presidential petition. It has set a precedent across the world as far as electoral petition, and it's a point of reference across the world as far as these matters are concerned. Morara Omoke, what do you make of the significance of it? Like I said before the break, we are basically flexing an electoral law muscle as we go along, petition after petition, even though for some it's a thorn in the flesh. What do you make of that aspect of things?
In terms of developing the law,
Yes.
we have to, I think we've made good steps in terms of developing the law.
Right.
Our problem is conduct of elections. That's where we are not we are only getting worse. And as I was saying earlier on, is that when you look at our history for the last 30 years, we can only point to one properly conducted election in 2002, where there were no complaints on either side. But on this, for all other elections, we've always had complaints. We cannot seem to tally or verify the results quickly enough. So people have to sit and wait for over a week for results. And I think that's almost a week for results. And I think that's very discouraging. We are not making any steps. I hope that maybe with this particular election, depending on the outcome of this case, whether it is nullified or it's not nullified, that we can probably have some soul searching and make some change in that regard.
Absolutely. And as far as that is concerned, the loopholes you're talking about that can be sealed as we go along, there was the comment about whether or not there's a laguna. Can the president carry on? Does he have even sufficient power as far as the constitution location is concerned? What do you say about Kithi, about that, Mr. Kithi?
First, just to pick on what my colleague has says, come to that, is Kenyans must get used to this. They must get used to this. You know why? The other day, the dispute that comes to mind is the Trump versus Hillary Clinton.
For sure.
It was very interesting.
Yeah.
And there was the issue of interference by the Russians. And that issue is, even today, is still troubling them in terms of investigation. And Trump is having his issues up to today, a follow-up. Now, look at it this way. If US can still have the issue of interference of, well, in our case it is server and multiplication of votes and stuff, that argument, who are we not to have that problem in terms of maturity of democracy? So we are saying, yes, we are closer home, but we shall never be home. Because there is nothing on earth called a scientific election. There's nothing like that. An election will always have people's and human intervention. Right. Again, if you look at the bigger issues we've been looked at, for instance, bribery in itself can vitiate an election, because then the person's choice has been skewed by the mere fact that it's been bribed. But those are things that happened in this election. We didn't look at them. There are issues like voter intimidation and violence. It happened some places. We didn't even look at them. We just went straight to the numbers, and we went to the process of management of the voter itself. So eventually, even if we remove this out and we get it perfect, how about the human behavior and conduct as at the time of the pre-season or the pre-election season and the election season itself? How do people conduct themselves? We've looked at IEBC as the infrastructure that then manages election, and that's the questions where we are now. And probably we've limited ourselves within the force of that argument. Right. But eventually, the human being managing a human being himself is the issue. Look at US; they even raided a parliament the other day, the parliament buildings. So the human being keeps on mutating in terms of problems. So Kenyans must get used to election and electoral dispute, and must continue to mature in terms of subduing their emotions to allow the moral probity and suffice eventually to be able to move on with their lives without being disturbed in the societal edifice by an election. However, coming back home, what happens then to us? We are able also to sustain a president within the incumbency. Yes. The life of the incumbency for some time if we're going to be nullified. So upon nullification, that means if Monday there's a nullification, we'll have a further 60 days within which Uhuru Kenyatta continues to be president, and we're going to have as another election. Right. And by the way, it doesn't mean that if we're going to have another election within 60 days, there shall not be a petition.
That's the question. Will we be circling down the drain, having petition after petition? What if another person wins and then they get to the Supreme Court? Then what? Are we going to just continue going down
I think, Trix, one of the things that we also need to convince ourselves is that we cannot have an election that is perfect. You know, elections shall at all times be having some troubles here and there. But I think the big test is to what extent are those problems affecting that particular electoral process.
Right.
The aspect of us finding ourselves before court, petitioning, having petitions here and there, I think it's the price of democracy. No person who has petitioned before court is outside the law. They're all doing that within their constitutional right, and that is the price of it. So I think we should not be, in as much as it will be imagined as a circus, whereby on one part we have a president who is within the temporary incumbency phase, who has actually limited powers in a way, because he can no longer even appoint a judge. He cannot appoint new commissioners or even a chair of another commission or something. That tells you the kind of lame president that we shall be having heading our country. You know, it's more or less a president who is given those security briefs, issues to do with the national security. I think it is not doing any good for us as a country, but I think, again, on the other part, it's about balancing the right of this petitioner vis-a-vis the common interests that we have as a people. In the event of whatever the outcome is, you see, we are a country that following the 2017 decision, so many countries such as Namibia ended up quoting our judgment then.
For sure.
So we are becoming a country that is regionally looked at as to how we have grown with respect to the rule of law and the amount of jurisprudence that keeps growing within the corridors of our courts of law. Today, you found, over tens of advocates representing various parties. Each advocate is simply trying to put forth the provisions in law, trying to defend the interests of his client. Again, that is the price of democracy. So in the event of an annulment by the Supreme Court, we shall again have to wait for those 60 days, and we shall be subjected to the process again. That is not a problem, because this is a constitution that we have given ourselves. We shall have to live with it. But I think, for me, elections shall come and go, but I do not anticipate a scenario where we shall have a perfect election. We are working towards there, but I think elections shall at all times be marred with irregularities and various injustices here and there. It's about the threshold, the extent of that particular those particular problems that are affecting the election.
Right, and I suppose that's when what Keith is saying comes into play, rising above all the processes that are happening and waiting patiently for the law to take its course. Now, Morara, there's an issue that came up in court today that has to do with the constitution of the commission, the IEBC commission, and whether at what point does it stop being a matter of a block as opposed to the chair making decisions or doing things by himself. What do you make of that, and what does the constitution say?
Logically speaking, now speaking also on the presidential electoral dispute that is ongoing, the IEBC should always operate as a unit. When you read the constitution, Article 138, clause number 10, when you read very carefully that particular clause, it envisages the IEBC functioning as a commission.
Right.
Why it refers to the chairman separately, it's when they give him a specific responsibility. Actually, when you look at Article 138(3) and 10, the Constitution maybe only allows him to do specific things only as an agent of the commission. It's merely delegating to him. But at all times when you read the law, it refers to a commission as a unit.
Yes.
And this being a commission, it cannot operate based on an individual. Then it will actually go against the other provisions of the Constitution, like Article 249, which says that commissions are to promote democracy, accountability, transparency, and for the individual commissioners, they always act independently.
Right.
No one commissioner should take the rest hostage, as we are seeing now as we speak today.
Okay, now I'd like to read a quote by Deputy Chief Justice Philomena Mwilu. She said today, "I was the marshal today, and that that is how we work as a team. We consider ourselves equal, and none has veto power. Pray for us, as we shall return a judgment not less than what Kenyans expect from us." And a lot of people are trying to dissect this quote. What do you make of it, Keithy?
Well, again, although they say they are one unit, that's the front that they want to give us, it's not true.
Okay.
It's not true because even if I sat there myself, I would still want to have my own legal mind and apply myself.
Yeah.
Now, in the process of judgment writing, first there's something called a plenary, in which they all sit and discuss the issues for determination, which are 9.
Right.
One of the issues that sticks out is the use of technology and its place in the electioneering process. And then that vis-a-vis the significance and the dominance of the vote that does not get lost through the process. And that has to be fused. Now, lots of that, you've seen justice, some judges are given certain roles for purposes because of their background in terms of understanding. I've seen the Naula pick a lot of the issues of IT, and a lot of the questions and responses were on him. In terms of procedure and processes, we had it allocated to the other judges. In terms of the historical significance of the court, right from the decision from the past to date, that has also been allocated to certain judges. So there have been pronouncements here and there. Now, as a character, as a judicial character in a person, when trying to digest that, you have a certain passion to a school of thought. You may be pro process, but others want the result. What is the result? Now that becomes a place of departure. So in law, once you travel through the analysis and reach a certain stage, then probably you need to come together and then you pronounce yourself and say, this is how it's been. And once you share that plenary, you will do one thing. Either convince each other that we have a common decision. And that becomes one judgment because you've all have ran through the rest and reached the same decision. Sometimes you differ. And that's very allowed. So when you differ, you write a judgment. You can agree on certain issues and differ on certain issues. In those issues that you differ, you write your own decision and pronounce yourself differently from the rest. And that's called a dissent or a dissenting judgment. So it is not true that when they live there, they must come up with a common decisions. They can come with different decisions. In fact, they can come with different decisions on each of the points of determination at each time. Now, then when she says they are going to write a judgment that will again be the appreciation of Kenyans in terms of the expectations, I think it is a question of doing justice more than whether the decision will be the same. They're supposed to be just to do justice to the best of each person's individual effort and appreciation of the law. That's an individual effort, and we shall hold them to task individually. So if in the plenary they agree, that's very good for us. However, the majoritarian approach is what we have at the Supreme Court. So if we have 5 against 2, we may have 4 against 3, or may have only 1 dissenting. Of course, as lawyers, when we appear before them, we already know the schools of thought that they belong. That's the beauty again, that you go to a judge.
There's a predictability.
In fact, sometimes if you, for instance, we go to court and we want certain orders against something, you would probably wait for a week, so that the next week there's a judge that appreciates these things much faster because of the background and history of that judge, as opposed to others. For instance,
we're running out of time, so I'd like Bashir also to weigh in on the matter of the commissioners, as well as what the quote from the Deputy Chief Justice.
I think my understanding of the quote from the Deputy Chief Justice, she's trying to say that each and every one of us can come up to a certain conclusion, can maybe agree or disagree with the rest of the members. But I think the kind of interpretation she was giving is, you may not find half of the 7 of us walking out of court or giving a press conference somewhere. I think that is what she was trying to. That's what she was trying to share. With respect to how they come up to a decision and come and read it to Kenyans as a team, so that they do their vote, so we know the outcome with respect to the numbers, with the majoritarian aspect of it, or on the side that will be the minority. I think that is now a mature way of sharing the outcome with respect to how you have maturely rendered your vote on a certain issue. But I think the biggest issue, or the biggest lesson she was telling the people of Kenya is, do not expect us to cause disunity, a certain level of disunity, to an extent that half of us will be disclosing something to you from the corridors of maybe hotels or other courts of law. It's about now working as a team, but being independent of mind. When I come to the aspect of the place of the place of the commission vis-a-vis the role of the chairperson, I think it's one of the issues that shall be. A ruling shall be rendered upon under determination with respect to the place of 138 3C vis-a-vis 138 10 with the place of the chairperson vis-a-vis the place of the with the members of the commission. And the place of, we were given the example of independent officers. For example, office of the Auditor General vis-a-vis, compared to the office of the chairperson of a commission. I think these are now some of the issues that we expect the Supreme Court to give a determination upon, because that determination is so important. It shall, I think, affect how the subsequent runnings of our electoral processes shall be done by either jointly the chairperson together with other commissioners and so forth. So I think it's a big issue and it's a wait and see issue.
Morara, briefly, less than 30 seconds, what you have to say about today's proceedings?
I would say that the lawyers did their part, the judges. The time is short, as you saw, but I think always, in my opinion, even the shortest time is enough to do what you need to do. In any case, most of the things that we say before the court have already been put in writing, so that now the judges can have. We also hope they have read what was presented to them.
For sure. And of course, all this is happening in the full glare of the media, and the entire country has its eyes on the Supreme Court. We shall be keeping you updated on these as they unfold. Monday is D-Day. The next 2 days, the judges shall be writing their individual judgments, and we shall hear from them on Monday. Now, with us today was Suleiman Bashir, George Kithi, and Morora Omoke, all lawyers trying to help us understand what happened today at the Supreme Court. My name is Trix Ingado. It's now time to wrap this up. This has been the Supreme Petition. Now time to get over to the news of the day. But it's good night from us.